America's crumbling education is in the news a lot lately. I think it was September 5th when Joe Biden managed to spit out some dismal indicators as to the future prospect for America's young as compared to the rest of the developed world. Joe didn't quite say it, but America's kids, the product of an obscenely well-funded schooling system, gulag I should say, rank last in the developed world in reading, writing, and math. It seems that homegrown retardation, if you ask me, is a far more pressing problem in modern day America than homegrown terrorism. Yet conservatives have kept insisting throughout the COVID lockdowns and quarantines that kids were missing out on an education because they were out of school. To paraphrase the great Joan Rivers, how can you miss out on a rash? When Madonna accused Lady Gaga of stealing her music, that great lady wanted to know, well, how could you steal a rash? A particularly startling fact caught my attention in The Economist. It reported that at 15, children in Massachusetts, where education standards are higher than in most states, are so far behind kids in Shanghai at math that it would take them more than 2 years of regular education to catch up. This fact is enormously telling and alarming. It tells you that America's best schools and students cannot compete with the world's best. As cited by this reporter, quite cynically, American children came top at thinking they were good at math, but bottom at math. There's no doubt that American kids are drowning in self-esteem. Inflated self-esteem and narcissism not only mask failure, but create pumped-up nihilists ready to unleash on their surrounds should they be challenged or thwarted along the way. Self-esteem is the royal jelly upon which America's children are raised. Our child-centered schooling has produced kids who do not believe they can and should be corrected. And when corrected, they lash out in anger or bewilderment. To listen to our university students speak is to hear a mixture of, dumbness and supreme confidence combined. Young people, for the most, can hardly string together coherent grammatical sentences. They open their mouths and out-tumble nothing but inane, mind-numbing cliches and banalities spoken in those gravelly, grating tones. Vocal fry, the linguists call this disgusting sound. These days, the Kardashian-style guttural growl is considered meaningful, even precious. Linguists name it and study it instead of recommending to crush it. To be fair, the kids are not to blame. They really aren't. Anyone under 50 seems to be so afflicted. This group can't use tenses, prepositions, and adjectives grammatically and creatively, or they can't appreciate a clever turn of phrase or wit. They can't conjugate verbs correctly. Have you noticed that the past perfect tense is dead in America? The age group discussed will relate to you that they had went to school or had came back from the cinema. Certainly our young graduate from high school speaking pidgin English or pidgin Ebonics. Every sentence is prefaced with "I feel like," and the thoughts consist of emotional inanities as follows, like "I want to give back," like "I want to make the world a better place," like "it's important to love myself," teaching textbook narcissism, like "we need to unite," like "follow your passion." The hallmark of speech, written or spoken, is the use of only the most rudimentary, emotionally evocative language for lack of solid vocabulary or higher order thinking and proper emotional restraint. In fact, hallmark cards are edgier and more original and intuitively truer than the undiverse minds of America's young and those who've raised and taught them, parents and pedagogues. It's not the kids' fault. To me, these young people sound illiterate, yet they are often high achievers in the kind of schools tailored for just such subpar output. No doubt the achievement bell curve has been skewed badly. Clearly, people even more illiterate than the students are setting these substandards, giving kids A's for output that showcases an inability to distill and summarize ideas and generate their own ideas. I mentioned the importance of emotional restraint in intellectual life. Not coincidentally, there's an asphyxiating hysteria that simmers beneath the surface and matches the vapid, the dumb vocabulary, whereby breathy figures of speech are deployed to fit a simpleton's emotionally over-the-top state of mind. Unbelievable, incredibly embarrassing, amazing, oh my God, those kind of expressions. In short, these are exclamatory expressions and language to mirror emotion. As to the edginess of ideas, America's young have not been given the analytical tools with which to question received opinion. And in tackling the tyranny and arrogant authority tied to covert critical race theory and stuff like that, the kids have been mostly AWOL, establishment compliant. 40% of millennials favor the suppression of insensitive speech. It is the oldies who've stood up. Language mediates thought and action. You cannot express or develop worthwhile thoughts without a command of language. I feel for the kids. They are not to blame. Their arrogant idiocy inculcated in schools is carefully cultivated and then reinforced with incontinent praise from pedagogues and parents alike. From K to university, progressive schools and pedagogues, teachers, overseen by teacher unions, are responsible for the quantifiable rot, for the monument-smashing, monumental ignorance among our youth. As to the formative figures in the child's life, more shocking numbers. Less than half, 48%, of all American adults were proficient readers in 2017. Less than half. American fourth graders, 9 to 10-year-olds, rank 15th on the Progress in International Literacy study. It's an international exam. And only 12% of us are considered health literate. Over 1/3 struggle with basic health tasks such as following prescription drug directions. The numbers come via The Economist. Conservatives like Candace Owen have repeatedly equated keeping kids out of school with keeping kids dumb and compliant. How is that so if schools are producing kids this banal, boorish, yet bossy?